I'm just going to reiterate what was already stated and something that I'd like to dig my heels into. This plenary aims to touch on our conference's theme, which is nihilism, analog, and punk, and what feels like the end of times. And I want to think about punk in the context of today, especially with regards to what's happening around the world. Fascism, white supremacy, colonialism, late-stage capitalism, and abroad and also within the United States empire, and the militarization of the police and surveillance state, and what it means for punks, and respected to everyone here on this panel, for LGBTQ punks of color to be resilient. But before we get into all that, that type of conversation, I have some questions for the entire panel. First of all, I was going to read people's bios, wasn't I? Okay. I was going to do that. So let's touch base on our panelists a little bit more. So right here, we have Byron Scott Adams, first generation Black and Salvadoran American musician, activist, model, multifaceted performer, and artist. Born in Norwalk, raised in Anaheim, Adams is currently based out of Los Angeles, having discovered punk rock through junior high, religion, and friends. Adams took up guitar and vocals in the renowned OC anarcho-queer post-punk band Palm Reader. Palm Reader took the SoCal punk scene by storm, and Adams also founded Queers Obliterating White Supremacy, also known as COWS in Long Beach, an abolitionist, anti-rainbow, anti-capitalist activist organization out of Long Beach. There you go. Okay. We also have Edxie Batts right next to him, and Edxie Batts is a neurodivergent, Blackfeet descended, non-enrolled trans Pinay, anti-authoritarian multimedia artist and cultural critic. Her work entails anti-political education while providing material support to historically targeted and colonized communities. Betts is also creator and self-distributor of zines. She was the first Mellon Foundation Artist in Residence recipient for the Feminist and Gender Studies program of Colorado College in 2020, and a RISE Poetry and Art Fellowship Award winner. And we also have our esteemed honoree keynote speaker, Kid Congo Powers, the epitome of fucking cool. I'm just gonna read off of this. This is what I'm gonna do. Kid Congo Powers has been described as a legendary guitarist and paragon of cool with the greatest resume ever of anyone in rock music. That is a fact. Okay. That unique imprint on rock history stems from being a member of not one, but 3 beloved, groundbreaking, and influential groups. Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, the Cramps, and last but not least, the Gun Club. Let's take a look here. So for opening questions, can you tell me something of what it was like coming up in punk, specific to the locations you've been? I'm gonna pose this question to Kid, because I'm currently reading on this book. You are foundational punk rock. You know what I mean? Like, you were right at the inception of everything. I'm reading all about the LA, the Bay, New York, abroad, like everything. Like, I'm coming up in punk, how has that been specific to the locations you've been?
Well, Los Angeles is where I grew up and where I spring from. And punk for me, because I'm old as Methuselah, but it's generational. I mean, we have different generations actually here on the panel. It's really great. And for me, punk, I came out of in the mid to late 70s. I was already going out to see music and hanging out on the glam rock scene. it was Rodney Bingenheimer's English Disco, and bands like the New York Dolls, Iggy and the Stooges, all of this. And from that, and I was just like a 15-year-old kid going out and experimenting with all the good things, sex and drugs and rock and roll, and in that community, what I found at that point was a lot of other young queer kids. There was a lot of in the glam rock scene. There was a lot of, because of David Bowie and Ziggy Stardust, there was a lot of ambisexualness, and this was kind of my ticket in, and that he was an alien from outer space, as Ziggy Stardust, and that really spoke to me because I felt like an alien, and I felt like a 15-year-old kid, like you growing and your body's weird and your hormones are weird and you're experimenting with drugs and finding music that people at my school didn't know or like. I was a big magazine reader and just and I was just seeking out different things already at that point. And
I have a question.
Sure.
Coming up, right, specific to locations you were in and stuff, like, as you're navigating the scene, right, you're discovering yourself and all that kind of stuff, like, were punks, like, aware of, like, the political climate that was going on as well? Like,
well, in the early punk, yes,
yeah,
for sure, that was the time of, we had just come out of the 70s, which was the sexual revolution. A lot of freedom, very, in the late 60s, early 70s, right now, this reminds me of the protests for Vietnam, that were very strong and revolutionary. And it felt like young people were doing something. And there was definitely things, political, ramifications of that, because at that point, the news didn't know to censor. So you would just see on TV people being killed in Vietnam and stuff, So as a young kid, I saw that, and everyone saw it. So that's why, and it's the same now because of the internet. That's where the outrage is you see it. But in punk, the climate, there was this freedom from the glam era, like, oh, I'm queer, I'm flamboyant, I'm out doing my thing, and we can all be great. And then, in early punk was very queer, a lot of queer people. I mean, that was the thing. A lot of those queer kids I met in glam became punk rockers. We were, 14, 15, 16, and then when punk rock came, we were 17, 18, 19. So we were, and it was very. The thing was that punk was very separatist. It was not part of anything, everything. It was a very sequestered thing. We were a tribe of different people that were different in every kind of way. And so labels were really taboo, So no one, and everyone was rallying against whatever came before.
And how was it navigating that as a queer brown person? Because in this book, let me tell you, I'm reading about going down to Huntington Beach, all around Orange County. You're from La Puente.
Yes.
You know what I mean? LA, you're traveling all the fuck everywhere, getting on the bus and all these things.
Yeah.
How was that, like, social, like, just experiencing all of that shit? You know what I mean? Different scenes.
Well, it was. I was curious about it all.
Yeah.
And I couldn't bear the thought of being left out of things.
FOMO.
Yes, exactly. And, yeah, I was a brat. And but what I was just looking for my people, and I knew they were out there, and I knew kind of where to go to find them, and so navigating that as, I never saw myself, I just saw myself as this weird outsider. I didn't see myself as a queer. I mean, I saw myself as queer, but again, there was not identity politics.
Right.
You know, at that point, there was not identity politics. We were having a great time, is what we were doing. And everyone knew who was queer, everyone knew who was sleeping with who, and everyone knew what was going on, but no one ever talked about it. It was a thing. Everyone knew that they loved John Waters, everyone knew that they loved reading John Reschke, and people knew, you know, everyone, it was, bands like the Screamers, you know, were queer led, you know, the leaders were queer, but identity politics were not there because labels were not, you were punk rocker, that was it, you're not all these other things, you know, because all of that other thing didn't matter, you know, at that point.
And the same question goes down to Edxie